day there, and welcome to another session of Photoshop Basics. And today we're going to be looking at layer panel settings. Layer panel settings is a quick one, so let's just run through it. I'll quickly give it a practice class 3. That's the name. Now create. Right, here we are. The layer panel is just where all the layers come together, and the layer, in the next class we're going to be looking at it, but right now it has a settings. When you select the layer like this, and probably you come to this icon here, this menu icon, and click on it, you go down to where you have panel options. So when you select that panel options, it's just a small dialog box and with little feature, but very powerful. Right now there are some settings that we need to set and make sure they are they are working very fine. Okay, here we have the thumbnail size, and I recommend that you use either of these or these depending on the size of your screen. Mostly I would use this, but you can see now by default this was used. Sometimes it could be none, but I like that this smallest one be used here, so I select it. What this means is that, let me click OK to that. Anytime I draw an object or I introduce an object on the layer panel, it shows the size of that object. It shows the what's it called now, the size of the thumbnail. Each thumbnail, not the size of the object, but the size of the thumbnail. It's small now, so we can increase it. Let's say we increase it to the next size, which is something like this medium size now, and you see that the thumbnail gets bigger, and we can even make it even much more bigger if we choose the biggest one there. Here we are, click OK, and you see it's much bigger, but this takes much space, especially if your screen is not big. See, but if your screen is big, you can use this size because it will be very hard to see when it is small. So, but I like to use the smallest, so I'll go with the smallest. Just choose anyone that fits your screen or your preference, whatever. So I click OK to that. So the next option there is let's go back to it now. Panel options. Sorry, you notice my computer is slow. I'm rendering an animation at the same time doing this tutorial. Alright, the next one is the thumbnail content. The contents of the thumbnail can be can show the entire document, and it can show the layer bounds. But I prefer to use the layer bounds. What this means is, by the time we check this layer bounds, we can identify the object just by looking at the layer panel here. Okay, so if for instance now I draw a triangle now, you see that in the layer bound we are just seeing a triangle. But if it were not so like that, if it were to be entire document, it will show the entire document, and it will be very hard for us to know that this is a triangle and this is a rectangle. So I prefer to use layer bound. So the best choice for you. I'll use layer bounds, and I click OK. So make sure the settings are OK for you. Now the next section there, if we go back to the panel options, is this first checkbox here says use default mask on few layers. Well, I think there's nothing wrong with this if we have it checked, but just in case we don't have it checked, let me show you what it does when it is not checked. Over here, which we will come to very soon, is the adjustment layers, and when we select something like solid color, it actually creates a solid color, but you will notice that it's just a solid color. Okay, there are no masks, and I'm not sure you know what mask is, but let me quickly check that option, panel options, and check use default mask on few layers. Now what this will do is that by the time I come back here and quickly select my move tool, I come back here and select a solid color this time and click OK. You see that it creates a mask here. This is a mask. A mask is always attached to the main layer. We'll come to the types of layer, but for now just know that this is a mask attached to the main layer. So if you don't want this by default, that's when you get to uncheck that box, and this is very easy to delete. You can click and drag it to the delete box there and it's gone. And if you want to add it, sorry, my system is really lagging behind, don't show again, delete here. Okay, if you want to add it, you can just click on the mask button and it adds again. Okay, so it's easy to delete, but if you're working when you don't need it, you can easily uncheck that box. So let's go back to the panel options, and this one says expand new effect. Okay, this is also good to uncheck. Okay, I will check this, I'll leave this checked, and I'll leave this unchecked, and I think I'll leave this checked. Okay, what does that one mean? It means for instance, now if we add an effect, this is from the effect menu now, from the effect icon here down here, if we add an effect like stroke, and it'll bring out the effects layer style, layer style dialog box, and let's just put 70, something way too large there. Change the color so that we can easily see it. Let's just reduce it. Okay, so let's assume that's what we have added. I have to remove all this now. Let me just delete all these layers I've created. Delete. Okay, so this was the box. I just added an effect to a layer style to, and you see there is this icon showing that something is inside of it. So if we click on it, we'll see the stroke we applied previously. Now by default, this is set to look like this, that's it closes as soon as the effect is added, is not opened. But if we go back there now and put panel options and expand new effects as we apply it, we'll select this triangle now, and we'll just put maybe like color overlay. Sorry, my system is really slow. I'm rendering at the same time making this tutorial. Okay, so let's select this color. This color is fine for us, and we'll click OK. Automatically the effect we have applied expands, so we see that it expands. But this can occupy space, especially if you're using a very small screen. So I recommend that you don't check that box. For me, I don't check it because I always know that I applied an effect and I know what to do to make it. So I leave this box unchecked. Okay, the last one there is add copy to copy layers and groups. This is sometimes very needful. When you duplicate, maybe like hold an alt and drag on the layer panel there and just release it, you'll see copy, the word copy added. So triangle 1, copy. This is also very good if you want it. If you don't want it, you can simply uncheck it and click OK. And by the time let me drag the rectangle now and drag, I still have it as rectangle 1. So this is just minor settings we can do with the layer panel. More on the layer panel. The next one we're going to look at is all the surrounding features around the layer panel. But for this now, I want us to start from the top here instead of the bottom. I would have started from the bottom, but from the top here. The top here is a filter section for this layer. I'm not sure you've seen where sometimes you work in Photoshop and there are many layers, way up to 200, and you really want to find one particular layer. Perhaps the layer is a text layer or a smart object. We have different filters here. We have the filter for pixel layers, just images. We have the filter for adjustment layers. We have the filter for text, and we have the filter for shapes, and we have the filter for smart objects. So we can just decide. Under this place we have kinds anyway. We have kinds, we have names, we have effect, we have mode, attribute, color, smart object, selected, and artboard. So but let's use this kind for now and show you how it can filter. Say for instance, now I'm looking for the triangle. I know it's here, it's obviously here, but I can just click on this and it will filter removing the background. You see, when let me click that, the background is there now. But by the time I click here, it shows me all the shapes. So for instance, now let me introduce a text layer just by clicking text. Clicking text, and computer is way too slow because I'm rendering. Okay, so let me just put that as it is. Okay, lorem ipsum, yeah, default text typed. Okay, so I'm back. So this is a text layer. So if I wanted to look for all the text layers, I could just come here and click text layer, and the only thing remaining will be text layer. So it's a filter section of this layer. Okay, it's very helpful whenever you're looking for something to change. A client tells you change this, change that, or so you can just filter and find what you're looking for. All the text will appear, then you quickly search. So it's the same thing with images, but I don't have any images here, and we'll look into that later. So the next one now is the blend modes. Okay, this is going to be for advanced class, not for this beginners class, but for the beginners class, this is just where you can find all the blend modes. And I am not sure this basic class will cover some or all of the blend modes, but for now, just know that this is blend modes. And we have opacity. Of course, this opacity talks about each layer and how it responds to its transparent nature or its opaque nature. So opacity here is 100%, meaning it's very visible. If we reduce the opacity down to about 2%, you will notice that it's just a faint. Where's the triangle? Okay, there are two triangles here. Oh, sorry. Oh, there are two triangles sitting on each other. So this is 2%, so let me just increase it to where we can see it, somewhere around 36%. Oh, my computer is lagging behind. Okay, so we can see it now. Well, let me just take it way. Okay, if you're using 2018, 19, and up until 2022, if you press the number keys on your keyboard, maybe like 5, you will have 50%. Especially if your move tool is active, your move tool must be active for this to take effect. So you see 50% there. If you press 7, it will be 70%. If you press 0, it will be 100%, and if you press 1, it will be 10%. Okay, if you're looking for numbers that you can type, maybe like 35, you have to press 3 and 5 successfully, like in Jiffy, 3 and 5. So that can give us 35%. Okay, so that's how you can use the opacity there. It's very, very helpful, and especially if you have the number pad section on your keyboard, make sure you try to have that. Alright, so the next one here now is some of the things we can do to this layers, like each layer here, you will notice that there is just something like an eye around them, an eye. It means visibility. So what this means is that a layer can be visible once that eye is seen there. Okay, if you click on the eye now, the layer is gone here, but it's there, but it's no longer visible here. So what it means is that we can click here and make the layer visible here. And if we applied an effect, like these are the effects, color overlay, we can click on the eye on that color overlay, and the color overlay is gone. It's gone, and the original color, which is black, you may not notice the difference anyway, but just for you to know that we can hide and unhide layers and layer effects with this eye visibility, just as you're seeing them. So just like over here under the effect, and we can have more effect. Since we have color overlay there, let's just add stroke to it. Go to the FX and go to stroke. Okay, so let's choose red now. I want to have a color we can see. So let's increase the opacity back to 100%, and we have red stroke there. So if we don't want the color overlay, or if we don't want the color overlay, we can just simply click on the color overlay and we are back to the original color. So because this color overlay overrides the original color, which can also be set from this property. Remember, the last class I talked about the properties of objects on this side. Alright, okay, so that's what goes on there. Then one of the things we can also do to layers again is that we can rename them. Okay, we can rename layers. If we look at this triangle now, we don't want to give it the name triangle, maybe like 3-angle. We can just double click and type on it. Make sure to double click on where the write-up is, because if you double click outside the write-up, you are presented with something else. Photoshop is very sensitive of where you double click, so make sure to double click on the write-up itself. Even if it spans up to this point, just make sure you're double clicking on the write-up, and you can write 4-angle. Okay, ignore me, I'm just renaming what I want. Okay, so that's how we can rename all these layers if we want to. Now another thing you must have noticed is that layers can be locked. Layers can be locked, like what you notice here, there's a lock here, so we can select this layer and select this lock here, and the layer is locked. There's a shortcut to it, and it's Control L. This is Control L now. Sorry, not L. Control question mark, where you have your question mark on your keyboard, very close to your shift. So you just press it, and you have the layers locked. Same key to lock and unlock it. So we can even select multiple layers from here to here and lock it. Yeah, they are locked. Now you will notice something. Let me unlock all the layers. When the layers are locked, what it means for the layers to be locked is that we cannot move them again. We cannot move them. Previously, when they were, let me release one layer now. Okay, so you can see. Oh, my system is lagging behind. Alright, so we just unlock this layer and we're able to move it, but for other layers we will not be able to move it. You can see it's not movable again because it's locked. Okay, now if you notice, this background is locked but with a different lock. It's not a fill kind of padlock, rather it's an outline kind. This type of lock is a lock set by default. And what you can do, you cannot unlock this by just pressing Control question mark. It will not unlock. I think I've tried it before. It never did. So what you do is you double click on the layer itself, and once you see this, just click OK. That's all. It unlocks. So that's for if you are greeted with this kind of layer. This always happens when you never check Artboards to start. Okay. So that is that for the sections. Okay, now the next thing we're going to look at now is at the down section here. First of all, we have all these layers. Let's have all these layers unlocked because we're going to manipulate most of them. Okay, unlock. Oh, it was lagging behind. Alright, so if I select one layer now, maybe like the first layer, and I press and I come here and select this delete layer, it definitely will delete the layer, and it will ask you delete layer, the layer name, and say yes. If you don't want it to show again, you can click don't show again. You still have the ability to undo and have it back there. The next one there is the plus icon. The plus icon adds a layer, and it's an empty layer, like nothing is on the layer. It's so empty, you can't even see it here like something was added, but it's over here showing that something was added. Alright, the next thing there is the group icon. The group icon, the way it works is when you select two or more objects, okay, you can even select one object and select the group icon. When you select it, it groups all those layers so that when you click on this arrow button here, you see most of the layers inside of that group, and you can rename the group triangle, for instance, triangle objects, anything you want at all, you can just rename it, and the group is renamed. We can also hide it, and the entire thing that the group has is hidden. Okay, so that's the grouping. The next thing there is a adjustment layer. Yes, the adjustment layer. For advanced class, you will really want to know more about this. Okay, but for this basic class, what does adjustment layer do? They are not really objects on their own. Some of them are objects anyway, but they add some kind of effect to the underlying layer. Okay, it's very good you know how these layers operate, but first of all, let's just look at one of the sections of this adjustment layer. For instance, this first section has solid color, gradient, and pattern. These ones can add something to the work area. So let's say solid color, for instance. We used that previously. Select solid color. What it will do is that it will create a layer section for itself. Oh heavens, it was taking a whole lot of time. So let's select a color. You just select a color of your choice. You can move up the wheel like this, color wheel, and down. So let's take a green color and click OK to the color, and you have it there. So that's a solid color. It adds color to the entire document, and of course you can see that it's applying all over, so that we are not seeing all the layers beneath. It is very important to know that layers are stacked, and so the toppest ones are the ones that are visible on the workspace. Very important. The toppest ones are the ones that are visible. The ones beneath may not be visible except some manipulations are made. So you can move this layer down to where you have the rectangle, and what you will notice is that all other layers on top, like the rectangle layer and all the layers put in the group and the empty layer, they are all visible here except for the one beneath it. So something for you to take note of. Right, we might elaborate on this later on. So the next thing there is the next section there. We have looked at solid color. So gradient is just almost the same thing. Gradient is just to add some kind of let's choose is a two color thing. So let's choose from here first. Okay, so we can choose let's choose a color we can see, something like this. So we'll choose two colors, and linear is fine. Just don't worry about the settings for now. And oh, you can see that the layer is just beneath the green solid color layer we created. So what we can do is we can move it to the top. Okay, a quick shortcut there. The brackets open and close on your keyboard just after the P is for your layers, to move your layers up or down. Okay, so what you can do is you can press Ctrl and the brackets close, and the layers would move up. Okay, it has moved, just the computer lagging behind here. Alright, so okay, so that's what happens now. That's for the gradient layer. Okay, same thing, you can try out other ones under the section, the pattern, you can try it out. Now the next one there is a curves layer too. The other layers that have brightness, contrast, levels, curves, and exposure. I'm just going to select curves so that you can see what it does. Now the curve layer, you see this is not all about color, it's just all about effect. So what this does is that on your property section, you will notice something like a graph editor or something. So you can pull this arrow down and notice what happens to it. It darkens the background. Okay, let's pull it down so it will be very obvious. notice it's very dark now. So that's something about the adjustment layers. In advanced classes, we'll treat all this carefully. Now the other thing there is mask. Now mask has a separate class, but I'm just going to quickly show you that once you click on these are all layers without mask, but this one has mask. Once you see this kind of icon that looks like a lock, okay, or an anchor, it means that this is a mask and this is a layer itself. So this is a layer mask or the mask itself. So like all these layers now, we can quickly attach mask to it and to have a mask. Okay, we'll come to look at the functions of the mask in later classes. Now the last one there is the effect layer or the layer style, which we just used, that has all these layer style, especially drop shadow. So let's just try out drop shadow and see what it does. Drop shadow simply means to add shadow to the layer. So you watch here now and see what happens if I increase the distance. Okay, you notice the shadow obvious there. Let's increase the opacity of the shadow so you see it clearly, and increase the size of the shadow. So yeah, so that's shadow for you, and you can click OK, and so that's it for the effect. The last one there is a link, but there's a way this works, and for this class it's not going to be used, but you have to select two or more, or two or more objects to work, or two objects anyway. So if you click on the link, what it means is that these two objects are linked together. Now if I move one object, the other object moves. So it's like grouping kind of, but you know, it's like any object you move, the other object moves. So it's a linking of two layers, links two layers together. So that is it. So I hope you understood this class today. I'm really sorry for the computer lagging behind. I couldn't just help it. I had to make this tutorial because the rendering was taking much time. Alright, but please don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon so that you can always get notified whenever I post a new tutorial. Thank you very much. Until the next class, peace.